Bitcoin represents a massive paradigm shift, but in order to know why we need Bitcoin, we first need to understand the problem. What problem does Bitcoin solve? Well, when we look out into the world, we may notice a lot of darkness. We may notice racial injustice, poverty, the housing crisis, gender inequality, the cost of everything going up, hunger, global corporate monopolies that own entire industries like the tech sector or the food industry. All of these things have one thing in common, and that thing is money. But not just any kind of money. It's fiat money. Now, fiat's not a car in this case. Fiat means to decree, to declare. It's a Latin word that means it shall be so, let it be done. And in the case of money, it means that some entity declares money to have value. So what kind of money are we talking about? Well, we've got euros, dollars, rupees, pesos, lira, pounds. These aren't all separate systems. This is really one global economic monetary system called the fiat system. So when I mention fiat, I want you to think of some currency that you're used to using. So where does this money come from? Who declares, who decrees this money to have value? Well, there's three main entities that create money. The first is central banks. These are the banks of banks, and they print the money. They can create the coins and the bills, and they work in tandem with government. Government creates money through subsidies or jobs. And the third entity that creates money are banks, commercial banks. So these are the banks where you put your money. And for example, if you put 100 units of your currency, for example, dollars, if you put $100 into your bank account, well, that bank, for example, could lend out 1,000, essentially creating $900. That also means that your money's not in your bank account, but I digress. I won't get into that. So how much money's been created since 2020? This is a key question we're going to have a look at, and I chose that date on purpose. We're going to see why very shortly. But in order to understand the amount of money that's been created, we first need to really visualize money. So here's a person standing next to a pile of $100 bills that makes up 1 million. In this case, these are American dollars. This is a pallet of bills that makes up 100 million. And here we have 1 billion, so 10 pallets. What we're going to imagine right now is 1 trillion. Now, it's very hard for the human mind to grasp the infinitely large and the infinitely small. So I'm going to have you imagine a football field, okay? And you're going to fill it with double stacked pallets of bills. Now, this is massive. It's huge. 1 trillion. But you may be like, okay, $1 trillion, that's what it looks like. Well, how much money did the US print in 2020? Okay, they didn't print 2 trillion or 4 trillion. They printed 12 trillion. You might be like, okay, well, how does that affect me? Like, I don't use the US dollar. I don't live in the US. Remember from earlier, this is a global economic monetary system, and the US is at the top of that monopoly. So what they do affects the rest of the world. This is massive money printing, but what does that actually entail? Well, if we look in the last 4 years, the United States has printed 40% of all the money that's ever been in circulation in 4 years. That's definitely going to affect us somehow. And that brings us to the question, why is money printing a problem? How does it affect us? Well, I'm going to use an analogy to try to explain this. So imagine we're on a beach, okay? And there's sand everywhere. And I have a great business idea and I decide that I'm going to sell sand, okay? So I pick some up and I come to see you and I'm like, hey, do you want to buy some sand? You're probably going to say no, right? Because sand is abundant. It's everywhere. No one wants to buy sand on the beach. We don't pay for the air that we're breathing right now because that air is abundant. Let's say I pursue my walk along the beach and I find a diamond in the sand. Well, I'll probably find a buyer for that diamond and I'll probably make a good amount of money for it because diamonds are scarce, they're rare, they're valuable. People want them, they're sought after, right? Nobody wants abundant sand on the beach. But a diamond, that's different. Why? Because they are scarce. Now let's bring this back to money. Abundant money is no different from the abundant sand on the beach. When there's lots of something, it doesn't have as much value. Even if it's very valuable for us to be breathing right now, nobody can charge us for the air in this room because it is abundant. Now, if we were going under the ocean, maybe it would be more valuable because air is scarce in the ocean, right? But here it's abundant. So lots of money is just like sand on the beach. So what does it do to have value? Abundant money flows into scarce assets. Abundant money flows into things that people actually need, scarce, rare, valuable things like housing. It flows into things that increase in value, like stocks. It flows into land, right? If you bought land 10 years ago, it would be worth way more now. Why? Because of abundant money. Because abundant money flows into scarce assets, valuable things people need, and things that create value, like businesses. So when there's lots of money in the system, it goes into things that are actually valuable. What's the consequence of that? Well, the cost of food goes up. Because why? We need to eat, Cost of housing goes up, the cost of rentals, because we need somewhere to live. They're valuable, they're rare, they're scarce, and they're important for us. Travel, transportation, cars, healthcare, everything increases in cost the more money there is in the system. We just demonstrated something very important. Money printing is the root cause of inflation. Now, this is actually a meetup presentation that I've done, and at the beginning we had a question on the board when people walked in, and that question was, where does inflation come from and how does it affect you? And what people were coming up with makes so much sense. They were saying, oh, it's that politician's fault that we have inflation. Oh, it's the grocery stores, they're cheating people, they're causing inflation. Well, they aren't wrong in a sense that these are manifestations on top of a broken money system. Because of abundant money, which is the root cause of the reason, we see these actions of people on top of it because they got to save themselves. They got to increase their margins. They got to do these things in politics because it serves them, because we live in a system that incentivizes greed. We're going to go deeper into that later on. But those are just manifestations. The root cause of the problem, the real reason that we have inflation is because of money printing. Now you might be like, well, they can just stop printing money. Why are they printing money? Remember 2008, if they stopped printing money, the entire system would implode. So central banks, commercial banks, governments, they won't stop printing money. They can't stop printing money. Otherwise, the system will implode. Let's say someone comes to your house and steals 2% of your stuff every year. You probably wouldn't notice, right? Okay, let's say they steal 5% of your stuff. You probably wouldn't notice still. But if someone came to your house every year and stole 40% of your stuff, you would probably notice. And that's what's been happening since 2020. That's why I chose that key date, because people are noticing. People are noticing that they're being stolen from, that something's happening, that the cost of everything is absolutely insane right now, right? But why do we even want money? Why do we even want the money? Do we want to have lots of numbers in our bank account? Do we want to have a pile of cash at home? Well, I asked the group that question and they said, no, of course not. I want to have somewhere to live. I want to have a way to get around, transportation. I want to spend more time with my family, my friends, my community. I want to eat. I want to go on vacation and travel and have fun. So the answer to the question, why do we want money? It isn't actually because we want piles of money or numbers in our bank account. It's because we want it for purchasing power. We want the money for what the money can buy, right? That's purchasing power. What can we buy with that money? What experiences and objects can we have with that money? So if that's what we really want from money, let's see how this has evolved over time. In 1994, with one $20 bill, you could buy a cart full of food. With that same $20 bill from 1994, in the year 2014, you could buy half a cart of food. And in 2024, with that same $20 bill, you could buy a quarter cart of food. This is the paradigm that we've been used to all of these years, right? Since we were born into this system. Our purchasing power goes down over time. Why? Because of money printing. Good. All right. So we have a $100 billion bill from Zimbabwe on the screen. I want you to guess what you can buy with this bill. Now, I asked the group this question, And sometimes we get answers like, you could buy a car, you could buy a vacation, you could buy a loaf of bread. And the person who said a loaf of bread was actually the closest to the answer, because you can buy 3 eggs with this bill. Isn't that crazy? All of those numbers, and you can only buy 3 eggs. The reason is because purchasing power really matters. That's what we really want from the numbers, from the money. We want to be able to buy things. Now, don't think that this couldn't happen in the West. It's already happening because we've seen it since 2020, the infinite money printer, right? This is happening now. So I just want to cover the crux of the fiat system. Asset owners, people who own houses, land, stocks, real estate, all those things. When there's more money printing, the value of their assets increase. So you can see that people who understand the system and how it works are making more money over time, and therefore their purchasing power is going up, right? Now, I'm not blaming anyone. This is just how the system works. This is a system problem. Asset owners are not to blame, right? I'm not blaming politicians, government, I don't care. This is a system that incentivizes these actions. The problem is most people are workers. They trade their time for money. So their most precious asset, which is their time, our time, we trade it for infinite bills. What does that do? Well, if our landlord had increased purchasing power thanks to more money printing, us, renters, our rent went up. We have to pay more, but we don't have some other thing, some asset giving us more money on the side. We got to trade our time for money. And so we need to work more. We need to get more jobs, more gigs, right? We have to work harder because our purchasing power went down. I'm not blaming anyone. Like I said, this is just how this system works. The wealthy never trade their time for money. No wealthy person says, hey, I charge €8 an hour or $50 an hour, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. No wealthy person trades their time for money. They own assets. This leads to the Cantillon effect. Richard Cantillon was a French economist, and his thesis was those closest to the money printer benefit the most. And we can see it in the global distribution of wealth. 53% of the population share only 6% of global wealth. Can you imagine? That's like 4 billion people who are practically pretty much excluded from the global economy because of this, because of money printing. So what does this incentivize? Well, those closest to the money printer, governments, banks, central banks, the media, massive corporations, all these huge entities benefit from the money printing. And so they're incentivized to continue printing money, right? Plus, the system would completely implode if they stopped, and everyone would complain and ask for more money anyway. So this is exactly how the system works. But why care? How does this affect us on a daily basis, us individuals? Well, we have to work harder and harder. If you are a worker and you're trading your time for money and you don't own assets, you are literally a wage slave. I'm sorry to put it that way, but it's exactly what it is, right? We have to go to work every day. We have to work harder and harder. The cost of everything is increasing, so we need to take on more jobs, more gigs, more side hustles. They're trying to make it look like it's a good thing. It's not. It's exhausting, right? What does that do emotionally? Well, we're totally fatigued. We have anxiety, stress, fear. We're worried about money, burnout. And from a spiritual perspective, well, are you even doing what you want in life? Like, is that what you want to be doing? Going to a job that you don't like every day, trading your most precious asset, your time that you'd rather be spending with your friends, family, and community to try to make infinite amounts of bills that don't buy anything? Of course not. I know what it's like to be in that position. And I'm very grateful to have found a path forward, a way out of this. And I can't wait to share it with you in the second part of this presentation. But first, I have a question for you. Are you a human being or are you a human doing? Because the fiat system makes us into human doings. So here's what's happening. You have to go to work every day. You trade your most precious asset, your limited life force energy. We don't know how much time we have on this planet, right? But we have a finite amount of time here. And what we're doing is going to work every day, trading our most precious asset, the time that we have, our lifetime, for money, abundant pieces of paper, believing that this process of trading our time for money is going to bring us more time, when in reality, this is exactly the thing stealing our time. Money printing is theft of our life force. It's theft of this lifetime. But money's just a belief system. We believe that money has value. We believe that it can buy things. We believe that the paper is useful. Anyone who believes money's been backed by gold, it's not. It hasn't been backed by gold since the 1970s. Money is backed by our trust and our faith that the governments and central banks actually want to help us, right? That they're making sure that the money's valuable. No, they're not. They printed 40%. They printed a ton of money, trillions. Is that helpful for us? Not at all. It just makes things more expensive. Money's a belief system. If I take a 100 euro bill and I go to the United States, it's a nice number, right? Well, if I try to buy something with it in the US, 100 euro, no one's going to accept it. They're going to be like, I don't want that. I can't do anything with 100 euro in the United States. Why? Because it's a belief system. Because the belief in the United States is that euros cannot be used there, right? Those pieces of paper aren't the same pieces of paper as our pieces of paper. It's crazy. Money's just a belief system. So let's wrap this up real quick. This is the fiat system. We have inflation, infinite money printing that leads to diminishing purchasing power over time. We can buy less and less with the same money. What does that incentivize? Well, what we see as a manifestation on top of that broken money is greed. We need to consume all the time because we have to keep the economy going, right? We have competition. What does that lead to? Fear, stress, anxiety, burnout, and everything that we saw on that first slide. Hunger, poverty, injustice, division. These are all normal manifestations from a broken monetary system. I'm not saying that they're good or they're normal. I'm saying that given the incentive structure of the world in which we live, that is the mirror reflection that we're going to see in reality. This system anchors in ego consciousness. It keeps us focused on the material world, trying to survive every day, to acquire, to get, right? This is based on unlimited money. It is imposed top down because if I print money, I'm going to jail, right? We're not allowed to print money. And this is the incentive structure of society. Try to challenge this idea. I know it's a lot, but try to challenge this. Think of anything that's really bothering you in your life, or that's a challenge, or that's a problem, or something that you care about a lot, right? And try to challenge that. You'll always come back to money. Somehow, every problem is always tied back to money. And when you realize that this is the incentive structure of society, well, then the mirror reflection that we see is totally normal. But reality doesn't have to be that way. And I can't wait to present the solution to you. But first, normally during the presentation, we take 5 minutes of questions, and then we take a break to brainstorm for 15 minutes. So everyone goes off and has conversations and meets the other people that are there. And during that time, I put this question on the board. What have you heard about Bitcoin? And when people come back, we brainstorm about this. Like, what have you heard about Bitcoin? And during the meetup, what people said to me was, oh, Bitcoin's used by criminals. Bitcoin is horrible for the environment. Bitcoin's bad, right? It's a bad thing. And I find it fascinating that it's always so negative. And it's not surprising because, well, Bitcoin's the solution to the fiat problem. So what would fiat, the system, say about the solution, Bitcoin? And if you look over the media over the last 10 years, you'll only see negativity, mostly, for the most part. Traditional media has said mainly very negative things about Bitcoin to deter people from looking into it, to keep people from understanding the system in which they live. Because if we don't believe fiat has value, fiat disappears, right? Remember, it's backed by faith and trust, our faith and trust. We are fiat if we choose to be part of that system. So let's talk about the solution. Let's talk about the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, I just want to be clear. I don't see Bitcoin as a financial investment. I don't see it as a way to make more fiat currency. I don't invest in Bitcoin because I'm going to get more euros or dollars. I don't care about that system. Bitcoin's a system change. These are two completely different paradigms, two completely different worlds. We're going to see why. So, on the board right now, what you see are the properties of money. These are things that money has to be in order to be sound, good money, right? Now, I'm not going to get into this because it's too much for this presentation. We're just going to focus on two key points: scarcity and decentralization. Decentralization is something new that Bitcoin brings to the properties of money. But scarcity, we just saw fiat is not scarce at all, right? Remember the sand on the beach? There's tons of fiat money everywhere. The $100 billion bill that we saw from Zimbabwe, there's lots of money in the system. So let's talk about scarcity. We talked about assets earlier. Well, Bitcoin is the world's scarcest asset. There will only ever be 21 million whole Bitcoin. And I say whole Bitcoin because it's actually divisible. You can divide a Bitcoin into 100 million sats, like cents. Like, €1 or $1, you can divide it into 100 pennies or cents. Same thing with Bitcoin, but it's 100 million. If we were to divide the total amount of Bitcoin by the world population, we'd get about 250,000 sats per person on Earth, okay? That's about only €165 today. You don't have to own a whole Bitcoin. You can own little fractions like this. And that's it though, that's it. There's not gonna be more Bitcoin. We've never had an asset that was available to the entire world population. That's never happened before. Imagine if I wanted to get real estate around Central Park in New York because it's very valuable, very sought after, very expensive, right? Well, I'd probably need a broker. I'd probably need to know people. I'd probably need to have a ton of money. I'd have to do a bunch of paperwork and government stuff and all this heavy administrative stuff. But Bitcoin, you just pull out your phone and you buy Bitcoin. You just need phone and an internet connection. And beyond that, if you don't have a phone and an internet connection, you could use other ways like SMS, radio wave frequencies. There's lots of ways to access Bitcoin that aren't even traditional. It's the first time in human history that the very same asset is available to absolutely everyone on planet Earth. We've never had that before. Owning assets was generally very exclusionary for the wealthy. Most people can't afford a home anymore. They can't afford land. We can all afford Bitcoin because you can buy tiny fractions of it. Bitcoin is also completely decentralized. That means that there is no central authority that runs or owns Bitcoin. So for example, earlier, remember we saw how central banks, governments, and banks, they create money? Well, there is no one person or one group or one CEO of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is run by individuals like you and I across the planet. Individuals like you and I, we can run Bitcoin. So what happens is when China tries to ban Bitcoin, which they've done multiple times, they say, okay, Bitcoin's banned in our country. Well, it will never actually be banned because it's still running in Argentina. It's still running in the United States. It's still running in Canada. It therefore cannot be stopped or banned. Bitcoin is also accessible to every human being on the planet like we saw earlier. You don't need permission to get Bitcoin. You don't need an authorization. The same asset is available to everybody, no matter their background, belief, or country. That's amazing. It's the first time we've had this in human history. I think it's super exciting, but maybe you'll find this more interesting. The purchasing power that we've seen over time, right, of fiat, it goes down. This is the paradigm into which we were born and that we're used to. Our money loses value every year. We believe in fiat, that to have a productive society, we have to be stolen from. Well, what does that look like in Bitcoin? Remember, it's a system change. It's a new system, a new paradigm. Well, with one Bitcoin in 2011, you could buy a quarter cart full of things. Not much because Bitcoin wasn't really valuable at the time. People didn't really know what it was. How about in 2015, just 4 years later? Well, with one Bitcoin, that same Bitcoin from 2011, you could buy 3 cartfuls of things in just 4 years. Now in 2024, you can buy those 3 cartfuls plus a fancy vacation. I'm talking about like a luxury, very, very fancy vacation and a Tesla Model 3. with the same Bitcoin just a couple years later. Now you might be like, how's that even possible? I don't get it. Like, what? I'm going to give you a couple more examples. Let's have a look at a cell phone. So the iPhone 4S in 2011 cost 162 Bitcoin. Just 1 year later, that was 52 Bitcoin. A third, practically. All right, in 2016, an iPhone 7 cost only 1 Bitcoin. In 2022, you needed less than a Bitcoin to get even more powerful technology, an iPhone 14. And today, you need a tiny fraction of Bitcoin in order to get an iPhone 16. What we see here is an increase in purchasing power over time, more powerful technology for less Bitcoin. Yes, this is fiat upside down. You get more value for the same Bitcoin over time. Now let's say the person from 2011, they were like, you know what, I'm going to keep my 162 Bitcoin and I'll buy an iPhone 16 in 2024. I'll get better technology. Let's say they were super patient and they waited. How many iPhone 16s could they buy with their 162 Bitcoin? They could buy 11,751 iPhone 16s. It's crazy. It's like a huge amount, right? That sounds absurd. I understand it sounds crazy, but the point is their purchasing power increased incredibly just by patiently waiting and holding their Bitcoin. Maybe we can use another example and maybe this one will hit home. So we're going to talk about housing in Vancouver, which is a Canadian city. In 2011, it cost over $500,000 to buy an average house in Vancouver, which was approximately 122,200 Bitcoin. A lot of Bitcoin. Okay, but in 2023, it cost over $1 million to buy that same house, the same average house, but only 23 Bitcoin. What happened? Well, they printed a bunch of money in fiat. Abundant money flows into scarce assets. Abundant money flowed into Bitcoin, which is a scarce asset. And so you needed less and less Bitcoin in order to purchase the same house, whereas you needed more and more fiat to purchase the same house. So if the individual from 2011 kept their 122,200 Bitcoin and waited until 2023 to buy their house, how many houses could they buy? They could buy 5,313 more average homes in Vancouver. It's massive, it's crazy. I know, it sounds like, what? How is that even possible? But this is true. This is exactly what happens in Bitcoin. That's a lot of numbers. So let's try to look at this with images instead. If you buy Bitcoin today, you are just planting a seed. You aren't going to see your purchasing power increase insanely like we saw in those two examples. You're probably going to be frustrated, right? I have friends, and I did this too back in the day. I bought Bitcoin, and then I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, my purchasing power went down. Like, what the heck? I just bought Bitcoin and now it's down. And my friends, they text me, they're like, Daniella, Bitcoin's down so much. Like, why did I even buy this? And I'm like, forget about it, okay? When we think about nature and you plant a seed, you don't go to the seed every day and you're like, oh my God, the seed's not growing. Like, and you try to do a bunch of things and you're like, oh, I'm just gonna like get rid of the seed, whatever, who cares? No, you patiently wait, right? In nature, we plant a seed and we let it be. So plant the seed and forget about it. Let it be, let it do its thing, let nature take over, okay? Come back 4 years later and you'll find a tree. Your purchasing power will have grown. And you'll be like, oh, cool, I can buy 3 carts of food with that, right? Neat. But forget about it again. Leave it, let it be for another 4 years, okay? Come back in 4 years and you'll find an even bigger tree. Wow, my purchasing power grew so much. I can buy a Tesla Model 3. I don't think most Bitcoiners are spending their Bitcoin on that. They're probably waiting still because they know that if they wait another 4 years, they're going to wind up with a sequoia, a massive tree, a tree where you don't even need to work for money anymore because the fruits are just falling, right? Your purchasing power continues to increase over time as you patiently wait, as you live your life doing other things. I'm making a very important point we're going to come back to in a couple minutes, but first I just want to have a look at this dichotomy with fiat. Because what happens is when we look at Bitcoin, we're like, oh, it's so volatile. It's always going up and down. Yeah, in the short term, in fiat terms. But look at over time, what has Bitcoin done? It's gone up. The reason for that is abundant money. Abundant money flows into scarce assets, like we saw earlier. What is Bitcoin? A scarce asset, the scarcest we've ever had. So what's going to continue to happen as they continue to print money in fiat? Bitcoin will go up. Bitcoin's going to keep increasing in fiat value. It's going up forever because they can't stop printing money in fiat. But that's not the best way to look at what's happening. What's actually happening in reality, because these are two separate systems like we saw earlier. Remember, try to separate Bitcoin from fiat. Don't look at Bitcoin through the fiat lens. When we look at Bitcoin by itself, what we see is your purchasing power is going up forever. That's what's actually happening. Wait patiently and you'll have a sequoia, a fruit-bearing tree. I don't think sequoias bear fruit, but anyway, the point is, it will continue to provide for you as long as you're patient with your Bitcoin. And when you're patient like that, when you buy Bitcoin and you hold it and you wait, eventually you don't have to work for money anymore. You no longer need to trade your time for money. Bitcoin is a way to detach your time from your money. It's a way to take back your scarcest asset, your time. Because when you don't work for money, you're free to do whatever else you want to do with your life. You're free from the fiat slavery. I don't know how people can't be excited about this. Like, this is the most amazing thing. It's an incredible discovery. It's a way for us to free ourselves from the fiat system and to detach our time from money completely, just by being patient, just by allowing the natural course of things to play out, by planting a seed and waiting for the tree to grow, instead of artificially printing a whole bunch of money and trying to care for yourself today instead of your future self, right? Trying to survive day to day. How about we flip that on its head and we take care of our future selves, right? By planting the seeds today, the seeds of abundance. And I know some people are trying to still survive day to day and they're like, I can't afford Bitcoin. I can't do that. Buy a tiny fraction, put it aside and forget about it. That's all that you have to do. But I don't want you to buy Bitcoin today after watching this presentation. I want you to continue to challenge these ideas. Prove me wrong. I didn't believe this was possible until I saw people in Bitcoin actually living this life. There's many people in this paradigm already. They're free from money. And what are they experiencing? Abundance. What happens is when your purchasing power increases over time, you have less fear about the future, right? Because your future's taken care of. The sequoia will take care of you. You have more time and more life force energy to do what you love. We have more time to live. And so I asked the group during the presentation, what would life be like beyond money? And I'm asking you, what would your life be like if you didn't have to work for money every day? What would you be doing? Would you be creative, having fun, doing things that you love? Art, music, spending time with friends and family, learning, reading, just being, just being human, whatever that means for you. Just creating things for the pleasure of creating things instead of trying to monetize it, right? Don't have to think about monetizing creating music anymore. Just create music for fun. Just have fun. All humans have physical needs. We need air, water, food, and shelter to live. These are our basic necessities, right? This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Above that, we need safety. Most of the world population do not have this. They don't have clean air, clean water, healthy food, or shelter, right? If we bring in the quality of these things, we can add in way more people. This is especially true for 50% of the population that only shares 6% of global wealth. That's like 4 billion people that don't even have this. Add on top of it love and belonging. And I'd say, very much generalizing, that most people in the West have these things, but the love and belonging has very much been severed since 2020, right? We have less connection, less of a sense of connection with everyone else. The love and belonging, we can definitely see it through the woke movement, right? There's a cry out for this. I'm not saying it's the right approach, but I'm saying this is a manifestation of what's coming through from the fiat system. of people wanting that connection, that recognition, that love, and that belonging. I'm not saying that they're doing it the right way, and I'm not saying that it's not backed by financial stuff. That's a heavy topic. There's lots to talk about, and there's a lot of fiat funding behind all of that, so I'm not going to get into it. But the next level is esteem and self-actualization, because once our physical needs, our safety, love, and belonging are taken care of, we can move up into higher levels of consciousness. From a spiritual perspective, why am I here on earth? What are my gifts, talents, and abilities? What do I want to share? What do I want to learn? What do I want to receive? These are all questions that most people can't ask themselves because they're just trying to survive day to day. But now that we have Bitcoin, now that we have increasing purchasing power over time, now that the future is taken care of, now that we're safe, we can connect with the people around us, we can spend more time with them, we can have more love and belonging, we can spend more time on ourselves and our self-actualization, right? Have a higher contribution, be on a higher timeline. This is going to lead to a brand new life experience for the entire global population. Once people actually see what's happening, and don't tell me they're not going to not see. Because once you see this reality, you cannot unsee it. Once you enter into this reality, you never want to go back to fiat. It makes no sense anymore. Once you've understood how the system works and you see how much better this system is, there's no way people are going back. That brings 8 billion people online into a better world. And when I say online, I don't mean the internet. I mean into the collective consciousness. Right? Because there's people trading their time for money right now, working harder and harder on the fiat treadmill, trying to survive day to day, who have incredible gifts and talents. Some of them are amazing inventors, they're Einsteins, they're incredible artists, and they can't express their gifts, talents, and abilities because they're trying to survive day to day. Well, no more. No more in Bitcoin. People can be themselves. They can contribute their beautiful gifts and talents to the network. Because what happens in Bitcoin is when you bring your gifts, talents, and abilities into the network, they serve everyone else on the network. It's not like fiat, where everything gets funneled up. This is whatever I do in Bitcoin serves everyone else in Bitcoin and vice versa. That's not how it works in fiat. We saw it earlier, the Cantillon effect. Everything funnels up to the top, to the richest people. All of our hard work, all of our time and contribution and abilities, right? Funnels to the richest people in fiat. Well, it's the opposite in Bitcoin. It funnels back to everyone on the network. Add in technology, which I did not talk about in this presentation because it's way too big, it's massive. But we have technology advancing at an exponential rate right now. It goes like this. This is what technology does. And right now we're in the hockey stick, the part where it goes up. We're going to see incredible, unfathomable technological advancements in the next 10 to 20 years. It's going to be crazy, unimaginable. And in fiat, that technology enslaves us. But in Bitcoin, it completely frees us. It is to our advantage. It is there to help humanity, rather than be to our detriment, like it is in fiat. I invite you to challenge that. I'll probably make another presentation on it because it's just a huge topic. But that's the thing. Add to the exponential progress of humanity our talents and abilities, but add in the incredible advancements of technology to our benefit. My gosh, the world is going to be completely unrecognizable in a couple years. It's beautiful. It's really exciting. The world is beautiful and bright in Bitcoin, and it's very dark and bleak in fiat. Because that technology will continue to make things worse and enslave us eventually, because the money printing needs to go crazy over there. Coming back to the light, when we don't have to work for money anymore, we can focus just on our talents, what we love to do, however we like to spend our time, whatever that means for you. Maybe you just want to spend time with people, but that's not valuable in fiat, right? If you're a doctor, if you're an energy worker, if you're a doula, spending time with people and actually just taking the time with them, you have to chase money, right? So you gotta cut back on those things. Well, we don't have to monetize that anymore. We can just be present with other people. We can hold space. We can be there and not have to think about our purchasing power going down and needing to go chase money. Once our needs are taken care of, we can truly explore what it means to be human. There are people already doing this, but in general, it is viewed as taboo, right? Exploring what it means to be human from a deeper sixth sense perspective, right? clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, telepathic communication, mediumship, channeling. What are the abilities that we have beyond our five senses? What's happening in the room around me right now? What can I not perceive with my typical senses? We don't have time to do that in Fiat. Are you kidding me? Yes, there are some people who do spend their time in that. Some people have to monetize it because they need to make it into a job. What if this wasn't attached to money at all? What if we could just take our time to explore what is beyond our five senses? I believe humans are capable of so much incredible things that we don't know about because we haven't had the time to explore those abilities. And I'm cutting it short because I could get really esoteric here, but I'll keep that for another time. So this is a massive paradigm shift. We saw earlier we have the fiat system, it's imposed top down, it's a beautiful pyramid. Well, Bitcoin flips that pyramid on its head. In Bitcoin, we have scarce money. That increases our purchasing power over time. All we have to do is be patient, just like we do in nature. The result is we no longer have to work for money. Eventually, if we're patient with Bitcoin, if we allow time to go on, just like in nature, when we plant a seed and we wait patiently, if we do that in Bitcoin, eventually we no longer have to work for money. We have time to live, to experience what it means to be human. And in that case, the incentive structure is totally different, right? We have collaboration, creativity, light, love, peace, abundance, prosperity. This brings us up into unity consciousness. That doesn't mean everyone's the same. Definitely not. If you come into Bitcoin, you'll see people disagree on many things. We all have our own perspectives. But unity consciousness is sovereign individuals connected through the collective, knowing that if I hurt you, I am hurting myself, and so I wouldn't hurt you. We know that we are all one, but we are separate individuals having a human experience. We're multidimensional beings experiencing what it is to be on this planet. We are all connected. From this brand new paradigm, we get much closer to enlightenment rather than ego consciousness like we saw earlier. This is a ground up movement. This is not imposed top down. These are people being like, hey, there's a better world over there. I'm going to go into that world, right? It's a choice. We have a new choice. A brand new choice to make, because for the last 5,000 years, we've been fighting for our innate rights and freedoms. We're born on this planet and we come here and we know that we are love. We are belonging, right? We don't have to fight for those things, but then we do because we live in a fiat system that takes those things away from us through broken money, through money printing. And we fight for all the things that we saw on that first slide at the beginning of this presentation, right? Gender inequality and racial injustice and all these things that are manifestations of fiat money. Well, we don't have to do that anymore. We can choose a new system. We can just walk out of fiat and be like, you know what? I don't agree with this paradigm anymore. I don't agree with this belief system anymore. I don't believe that fiat money has any value. I see it as pieces of paper, abundant pieces of paper that are printed to infinity, stealing my life force energy, the lifetime that I have here on earth. I don't want to live my lifetime like that. And so I'm choosing a system that values me and the collective, every individual on this planet who decides to move into Bitcoin. I'm making a new choice. This is a question that I had very recently still. It was 2023. I asked Jeff Booth this question, who is the man from whom I learned so much of everything that I presented today. Thank you, Jeff. I asked him, when will we live in a Bitcoin world? And his answer was brilliant. And I'm going to answer the same way for you. You will live in a Bitcoin world when you make that choice. I don't know when my friends are going to live in a Bitcoin world, but I've chosen to live in a Bitcoin world. Honestly, it took me a while to understand his answer. But then I was like, well, hold on a second. There are people living in that world. I saw them in Bitcoin Madeira, right? We went to a conference and I saw people from 2011 and I'm like, they lived beyond money completely because they were patient and waited and kept their Bitcoin. And now they're benefiting from the sequoia, the image that we saw earlier. So I can live in that world when I make that choice. I decide, hey, I'm going to plant the seed Today, it's the best day to plant the seed. Sure, it was yesterday maybe, but now I still have time today. Plant the seed, wait for the tree to grow. I made that choice, and you can too. Another natural question I asked him was, well, why aren't more people in Bitcoin already? I mean, this is such an amazing system. It's so beautiful. And people in Turkey, Lebanon, Argentina, they need Bitcoin. They're experiencing hyperinflation, right? They really need it. And the brilliant answer I got from Bitcoiners is, why aren't you in Bitcoin? And the things that you just thought of are the same reasons that everyone else isn't there yet, right? And in Turkey, Lebanon, Argentina, they're trying to survive day to day. They don't even know Bitcoin's a solution. They don't understand how the fiat system is working against them. But now you know. Now you can share this. Now you can make a choice if you want. So the reason that there aren't more people in Bitcoin may be the same reasons why you maybe haven't delved deeper into Bitcoin yet. But we all have a very key decision to make right now, especially now that you have this information. You have the choice between slavery, and yes, I put surveillance cameras on purpose in this image because it's going to get worse in fiat. Things are going to get worse. I didn't get into it in this presentation. Maybe I'll make another one about why. It just feels really depressing. I don't know if I want to get into all of that, but it's important people know why. But things are going to get worse. It's going to accelerate and get really bad in fiat. Or you can choose freedom, self-liberation through Bitcoin. You get to choose your reality. And what I mean by that is whatever reality you experience is true because it's true for you. If you believe that infinite pieces of paper can buy you things, then you're going to live in that world with all the consequences that it has. But if you believe that digital money, the world's scarcest asset that we've ever had accessible to everyone on the planet, where all the creativity, productivity, and intelligence of humanity and technology is redistributed to everyone on the network, if you believe that that has more value, then you can live in that reality as well. You just need to make the choice. I'd love to see you there with me and all the other Bitcoiners who are there. I wrote a book called Beyond Money. For now, that's the title. It might change, but it's coming out in the spring of summer of 2025. And it's about the crossroads of Bitcoin and spirituality. I get super esoteric in that book. It's really fun. But yeah, I would love for you to let me know if you're interested in hearing about it. Just go to Daniella.io/book and I'll let you know once it's ready. And if ever you want to use this presentation yourself for your own Bitcoin meetup, please just go to my website. I have a link where I will be sharing these slides. You can use them and present. You can use this video if you'd like. At the end, usually I take 5 minutes of questions and then people go and mingle and we go talk about Bitcoin and yeah, how awesome this beautiful new world is. And I hope to see you in it soon too.